Hey, welcome back. This is a place for stories, thoughts, and moments that stay with you a little longer. No rush, no noise, just you, the story, and a few quiet minutes. Let's start. Our rock solid relationship imploded in a single night, and I'm completely blindsided. I always thought people exaggerated when they talked about the calm before the storm. In our house, there was no storm coming. We were that couple, the one people envied, finishing each other's sentences, shared calendars, plans mapped out years ahead. We were solid. At least, that's what I kept telling myself, right up until 11:14 p.m. last Tuesday. It started with something stupid, a glass of water, just a quick trip to the kitchen, half asleep, expecting silence. But the light under the vent hood was on. My partner was sitting at the breakfast bar, staring at a stack of manila folders. Folders that definitely weren't there when we went to bed. The air felt wrong. Heavy, charged, like the second before lightning hits. I didn't even get a chance to ask what was going on. They spoke first. I'm leaving. No warning. No, we need to talk. Just a flat statement. It hit me like a punch to the chest. I actually laughed, waiting for the joke, but their face didn't move. No warmth, no hesitation. They didn't look like the person I'd shared a bed with for 6 years. They looked like a stranger, delivering bad news with professional distance. Leaving? I said, it's almost midnight. My brain was lagging behind reality. I reached out to touch their shoulder. They flinched, pulled away, like my hand burned. That hurt more than the words. That was the sound of something breaking. The house is already listed, they said. Same monotone voice. The movers come at 6. I transferred my half of the savings. Everything else is in those folders. They nodded toward the stack. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. The room started to spin. My heartbeat drowned out the refrigerator's hum. This wasn't a fight. You can fix a fight. This was planned and execution. Listed? I said, when did you list the house? We painted the spare room last weekend. We talked about a summer trip this morning. They finally looked at me, and the pity in their eyes, that was the worst part. We weren't talking, they said softly. You were talking. I was just waiting for the clock to run out. I grabbed the folders, ripped through the pages. I needed to understand. I needed proof that this was sudden. It wasn't. Bank statements, logs, timelines, months of documentation. Every mistake I didn't even know I was making. It wasn't paperwork. It was a case file, a dossier on our failure, built by the person I trusted most. Who is this? I asked, pointing to a name scribbled in the margin. There's someone else, isn't there? They stood up slowly, pulled a suitcase from under the counter. There's always someone else. In your head, they said. That's the problem. You were guarding the front door and didn't notice I'd already climbed out the window. Before I could answer, the front door clicked. A key turned. Someone was coming inside. Not even midnight yet. A man in a dark suit stepped in, clipboard in hand. He didn't look at me. He looked at my partner. Is the inventory ready? He asked. My partner nodded. Everything's labeled. Let's get started. I stood there in my pajamas, watching a stranger catalog my life. This wasn't just a breakup. It was a dismantling, done quietly, methodically, while I was sleeping. And as I watched the man with the clipboard, it hit me. He wasn't a mover. He was a liquidator. And he wasn't just here for the furniture. The man with the clipboard started walking through the living room, slow, careful, like he was inspecting a warehouse. His face didn't change, didn't even flicker. He didn't say sorry, didn't acknowledge me at all. I was standing there, half breathing, half panicking. He just started tagging things. Neon orange stickers on the television, the sofa, the antique coffee table we found in Maine. Every sticker hit like a gunshot. What are you doing? I yelled, get out of my house. I barely recognized my own voice. Thin, hollow, like the walls had suddenly moved farther away. He didn't stop, didn't blink. He just pointed at his clipboard. "The contract is signed and notarized," he said. "I'm here to verify assets before transport arrives at 2 o'clock. Assets. That word didn't belong. In my living room, I turned to my partner. They were standing by the door, already wearing a coat, a heavy trench coat I'd never seen before. "Assets," I said. "Notarized. We didn't sign anything. I own half of this." "You own half of the debt," they replied. And for the first time, something sharp flashed in their eyes. Hatred, or maybe relief. "I took out a second mortgage 3 months ago. You signed the papers. Remember? The renovation documents. The ones you didn't read, because you were too busy talking about the new kitchen." My stomach dropped. I remembered it. A Tuesday night, TV blaring, papers pushed in front of me. I signed without looking. I trusted the hand that held the pen. I signed away our foundation while laughing at a sitcom. "Why?" I whispered. "If you want it out, why not just ask for a divorce? Why burn the whole house down?" They stepped closer. Their voice dropped low, jagged, "Because you wouldn't have let go. If I asked for a divorce, you'd have spent 2 years working on us. Therapy, flowers, promises. You would have suffocated me with your rock-solid love until I couldn't breathe." They leaned in. I didn't want a conversation. I wanted a clean slate. And a clean slate costs everything. They checked their watch. 11:45 p.m. The timing was precise. Terrifying. This wasn't a breakup. It was an extraction. Then the man with the clipboard stopped. He stood in front of the bookshelf, reached behind the novels, pulled out a small black box, hidden inside a hollowed-out book, a book I'd given them. For our 3rd anniversary, he opened it. Silver flashed. My passport, my birth certificate, keys I didn't recognize. "Is this included?" he asked. "No," my partner said quickly, taking the box. "That's the collateral." I lunged forward. The man stepped between us instantly. Calm, controlled. "Sir, please remain calm," he said. "We have a legal right to be here. You're stealing my identity." I shouted. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought it might crack my chest. "You're taking my life." "I'm taking what I'm owed," they said, backing toward the door. "For 6 years, pretending to be happy." They looked at the man, finished the inventory. "If he interferes, call the number on the back. They're already around the corner." "Around the corner? Who?" I asked, but the door was already closing. I ran to the window, pulled back the curtain, just in time to see them climb into a black sedan. As it drove away, my blood went cold. 2 more cars, parked down the street. Lights off, men sitting inside, watching the house. They weren't movers. I turned back. The man with the clipboard was in the hallway now, staring at the spare room, the one we'd just painted. He placed an orange sticker right in the center of the door. "You should start packing a bag," he said, not looking at me. "The new owners want the locks changed by 4 o'clock. "New owners?" I said. "It's been 20 minutes. "The sale was finalized yesterday," he replied. Then he finally looked at me. "You've been living in someone else's house for 24 hours. You just didn't know it." The man with the clipboard didn't stay to watch me fall apart. He kept moving through the house. Silent, efficient, orange stickers spreading everywhere like toxic mold on everything I loved. Every slap of his hand felt like a memory being erased. I stood in the hallway, chest heaving. The air tasted metallic, like copper, like ozone. I did the math. I had less than 4 hours. I didn't cry. There wasn't time. Fear burned itself out and left something colder behind. Clarity. I ran for the spare room, the one we'd just painted. Serene sea. I grabbed my laptop off the desk. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped it. I needed the trail. I needed to know who had bought my life. I logged into our shared cloud drive. I expected to be locked out, I wasn't either a mistake or a final insult. The renovation folder was still there. I clicked it. One file. No photos. No contractors. Just a PDF. Deed_transfer_ final. I opened it, and the name at the top stopped my breath cold. The Icarus Group. I knew them. My partner had worked for them. Years ago. Private equity. Distressed assets. But everyone knew the truth. They cleaned up messy lives. Divorces. Disappearances. The kind of company rich people used when they wanted someone erased. Then I saw the price. $1. $1. I whispered. They sold our house. For $1. This wasn't a sale. It was a payoff. I scrolled down. My partner's signature. Clean. Confident. And next to it, Marcus Thorne. Thorne. The man my partner said they'd had a falling out with. The man who'd supposedly threatened us. The man we'd spent months hiding from. That's when it clicked. We weren't hiding. We were being tested. The cameras, the passwords, the excuses not to go out. It's not safe. They're watching. It wasn't protection. It was surveillance. Our house wasn't a home. It was a sandbox. And I was the experiment. The power cut out. Instantly. The fridge died. The air scrubbers went silent. Darkness. Except for my laptop's blue glow. And moonlight through the serene sea curtains. Downstairs, the clipboard man grunted. Annoyed. They're early, he called. A car door slammed outside. Then another. I crept to the window. Pulled the blind back. Just enough to see. 2 black SUVs. Blocking the driveway. For men stepped out. Not movers. No boxes. Equipment bags. Heavy ones. Demolition bags. I ran for the closet, grabbed my hiking pack, laptop, folders, clothes. My thoughts were racing. The black box, my passport, my birth certificate. Without those, I didn't exist. No house, no identity. I wasn't a person anymore. I was inventory. The front door opened, not with a key, with metal, professional. Thorne wants the hard drives first. A voice said, then clear the occupant. Minimum noise. I didn't have 4 hours. I didn't even have. For minutes, I looked at the window. 20 feet down. Bushes. I looked at the door. Boots on the stairs. Slow. Confident. They knew. I grabbed the glass lamp and smashed it into the desk. The crash echoed like a gunshot. He's in the spare room. Someone shouted. I didn't wait. Pack on. Screen kicked out. Cold air slammed into me. I climbed onto the ledge. Looked down. Dark shadows. Opened the door. A voice roared behind me. I didn't jump. I slid. Fingernails scraping siding. Then, impact. Pain shot my spine. I stayed still, breathing, listening. Light exploded from the window above. He went out the window. I ran, straight for the fence. Didn't look back. Vaulted over the slats, into the neighbor's yard. As a flashlight beam swept past where I'd been, I was in my pajamas. I had no ID, and my rock-solid life was being scrubbed from existence by the man my partner sold me to. The night blurred into cold air and the jagged rhythm of my own breathing. I didn't run for the main road. That's what they'd expect. Instead, I stayed in the shadows, slipping through alleys, cutting across backyards. This neighborhood felt foreign now. Every barking dog was a siren. Every motion light was a spotlight. I wasn't a homeowner anymore. I was a man without a name. 3 blocks out, I collapsed behind a row of trash bins. My lungs burned. I pulled out the laptop. It was the last thing that proved I'd ever existed. I didn't need a passport. I needed data. I opened the renovation folder again. Not the deed, the system files, the metadata, the stuff most people never look at. And that's when I saw it. The collateral was never my documents. Thorne didn't care about paper. He cared about access. My partner hadn't just sold the house. They'd sold the encryption keys to my employer's private servers. I worked in high-level data security, the kind companies like Icarus would kill to get inside. My relationship hadn't been a marriage. It was a 6-year con, a long social engineering attack, designed to crawl inside my firewall. Every I love you, every anniversary, every quiet night on the couch. Research, you always were the smartest guy in the room. The voice came from the darkness. Behind me, I froze, didn't turn. I knew that voice. It used to whisper goodnight. My partner stepped out from behind a parked car. The black sedan idled nearby. No trench coat now. They looked familiar, but the eyes, empty. The keys aren't on the laptop, they said calmly. You kept them on a physical drive. The black box I took, it was empty. I stood slowly, clutching the laptop. 6 years, I said. Was any of it real? They tilted their head. Something flickered. Regret, maybe, or irritation. The first year was easy, they said. After that, it became work. You were reliable. Good. It made betraying you exhausting. Movement in my peripheral vision. 2 men, closing in. The alley was sealed. Give me the drive, they said, holding out a hand. I'll tell Thorne you escaped. I'll give you 20 minutes. It's the only love I have left to offer. I smiled for the first time all night. A real smile. I don't have a drive, I said. It was never in the box. It's in the house. In the spare room, under the floorboards, we painted together. Their face drained of color. The demolition team is already there. They snapped thermal scanners. Then they've already found the trigger. I said, I didn't just build a firewall for work. I built one for my life. If that drive is removed without the bypass, it wipes every server it's touched. Yours. Icarus. All of it. Silence. Absolute. The men behind me stopped moving. My partner's hand shook. You're bluffing, they hissed. Check your phone. It vibrated. Then another. Then another. The men's phones lit up too. The implosion wasn't local. It was spreading. Accounts erased. Identities dissolved. Deeds vanished. Every shadow asset. Icarus used to exist. Gone. You destroyed everything. My partner whispered. No, I said, stepping back into the shadows. I finished the liquidation. You want a clean slate. Now you got one. We're both ghosts. I didn't wait. I ran. Not from fear, but release. My house was gone. My name was gone. But as the black sedan tore back toward the ruins, I knew the truth. I wasn't the one blindsided anymore. The wall had fallen, and for the first time in 6 years, I could breathe. The slate is clean. The game is over. If you felt that final click, leave a comment. Tell me, what would you do if your entire life was a lie designed to hack your mind? Take a breath. This is a different story. I changed the locks after my partner gave his mother a key without asking. The sound of the locksmith's drill was the most satisfying thing I'd heard in 5 years. It was a sharp, aggressive whine that chewed to the brass of our old deadbolt, spitting out tiny gold shavings that fell onto the welcome mat like confetti. My partner was at work. His mother was across town, likely clutching the spare key he'd handed her over dinner last night, like it was a scepter to our kingdom. They both thought they had won. They thought the discussion was over just because he'd made a unilateral decision. All set, the locksmith said, wiping his hands on a greasy rag. He handed me 3 silver keys. They felt heavy. They felt like a boundary made of steel. You want me to test the strike plate? No, I said, already sliding the first key into the cylinder. I want to hear it lock. Clack. The sound was final. It was the sound of my personal space being reclaimed. For 3 years, I had lived in a house with a ghost, a woman who didn't live here, but whose presence was felt in every drawer she reorganized and every helpful comment she made about our grocery list. Giving her a key was an act of kindness. It was a surrender of our privacy, and doing it without asking me, that was the declaration of war. I walked into the kitchen and checked the time, 5:15 p.m. He'd be home in 20 minutes. I didn't hide. I didn't pack a bag. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had gone cold, watching the driveway. My pulse was a steady, rhythmic thrum in my neck. I wasn't afraid. I was focused. The psychological shift in a relationship happens long before the locks change. It happens in the moments when you realize your partner is actually playing for the other team. It's in the way he defended her, right to check on the house while we were at work. It's in the way he looked at me like I was the crazy one for wanting a door that stayed closed. She just wants to help, he'd said, his voice dripping with that patronizing peacekeeper tone he used whenever she overstepped. She's lonely. What's the big deal? The big deal was the feeling of someone standing in my bedroom while I wasn't there. The big deal was the loss of the only place in the world where I didn't have to perform. At 5:38 p.m., his car pulled into the driveway. I watched him get out, whistling, swinging his gym bag. He looked relaxed. He looked like a man who had successfully managed his wife and appeased his mother in one fell swoop. He walked up to the front porch, reaching into his pocket for his keys. The old keys. The ones that no longer meant anything. I heard the metal slide into the hole. I heard the frantic jiggle of the handle. Then the silence. He tried again, harder this time. The sound of the metal grinding against the new cylinder echoing through the hallway. He knocked, a light, confused tap at first. Hey, you home? The door is stuck. I didn't answer. I took a sip of the cold coffee. The knocking got louder. Honey, open up. Something's wrong with the lock. I stood up, walked to the door, and looked through the peephole. His face was distorted by the lens, a fisheye view of confusion turning into a slow, dawning realization. He looked down at the lock, noticing the shiny new hardware for the first time. What did you do? He yelled, his voice muffled by the solid oak. I didn't open the door. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood. I did what you did, David. I said, my voice calm and level. I made a decision about our house without asking you. How does it feel to be on the outside of it? The silence on the other side of the door was thick, the kind that hangs in the air, right before a storm breaks. I could hear David breathing through the oak paneling. Heavy, jagged. He wasn't confused anymore. He was humiliated in his world. The man of the house doesn't get locked out of his own life. Open the door, he said. His voice dropped into that low, dangerous register, the one he used when he was losing an argument. This isn't a game. You don't just change the locks on your husband, and you don't hand out the keys to our privacy like they're candy, David. I said I didn't move from a foyer. I wanted him to feel the barrier. I wanted him to understand that the distance between us wasn't just wood and metal. It was 3 years of ignored boundaries. Then I heard it, a second car, crunching into the gravel. The sound was unmistakable, the high-pitched whine of his mother's pristine sedan. My heart did a slow, heavy roll in my chest. Of course, reinforcements, or worse, a surprise inspection. I watched through the sidelight window as she stepped out, chin tilted up, already victorious, like she was approaching a castle she'd conquered long ago. She didn't even look at David. She walked straight to the porch, designer bag swinging, and pulled out her keys. David, she said, voice sharp and aristocratic. Why are you standing out here? Like a solicitor? I have my key. Right here. She didn't knock. She didn't announce herself. She just jammed the key toward the lock. Metal hit brass. Stopped. Didn't slide in. Didn't belong. She tried again. Harder. The key screeched against the finish. What is wrong with this thing? She snapped. Did you give me a faulty copy? David stared at the ground. His face flushed deep red. She changed them, Mom, he said. She changed the whole lock. The look on her face was worth every rupee. I'd paid the locksmith. Not surprised. Shocked. Visceral. Offended. As if the door itself had insulted her. Then she started pounding. Not knocking. Pounding. A frantic rhythmic drum with the side of her fist. Open this door right now. She shrieked. This is my son's house. You have no right to keep us out. It's my home, Evelyn, I said. My voice stayed steady, even as adrenaline buzzed in my limbs. And the rule is simple. If you don't have an invitation, You don't have entry. A pause. David broke the trust. So I fixed the door. You're being hysterical. David shouted. It's just a key. It was for emergencies. Every Tuesday at 2 p.m. when I'm at work, isn't an emergency. I said, moving my furniture, isn't an emergency. Going through my mail, isn't an emergency. It's trespassing. And you let it happen. I watched them huddle on the porch, whispering, urgent, strategizing, a team. They always had been. I was the variable, the problem to manage. But standing there, inside my quiet hallway, I realized something. For the first time in this marriage, I control the perimeter. If you don't open this door, Evelyn screamed, her voice shaking with rage. I'm calling the police. This is an illegal lockout. Go ahead, I said. I walked back toward the kitchen, poured myself a fresh glass of water. I have the deed in my name, too. And I'd love to explain to an officer why a woman with no legal residence here is trying to force her way into my house at sunset. I heard her heels clicking away, sharp, furious, then the dull, heavy thud of David's fist. Hitting the door one last time, the momentum had shifted. This was no longer about a key. It was about who owned the air inside these walls. The silence after Evelyn retreated to her car was worse than her screaming. It vibrated. David didn't follow her. I could see his shadow through the frosted glass, slumped, heavy. The force of his anger had leaked out, replaced by something far more dangerous. Silence. He knew me. He knew yelling made me stronger. But quiet made me doubt myself. I'm sitting on the porch, he said, low, muffled. I'm not leaving. I live here. You live here, I said, leaning against the wall on the other side. But you don't respect here. There's a difference. I walked into the living room and sat on the sofa, the one Evelyn had suggested we replace, because the fabric was too bohemian. I stared at the coffee table, the stack of church flyers she left there last week, flyers she brought in while I was at my sister's, using a key I didn't even know existed yet. The weight of it pressed on my chest. It wasn't just her presence. It was the fact that David had handed her a map to my boundaries and watched her trample them. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Outside, Evelyn's headlights stayed on, two bright eyes, watching the house from the curb, waiting. She was waiting for him to break me. My phone buzzed. A text from David. Can we just talk? Please. I'm cold. This is embarrassing. The neighbors are staring. I looked through the window. He wasn't wrong. Across the street, the Millers were watching. From their porch, I felt it, that old reflex. The peacekeeper. The part of me that smooths things over, so no one feels uncomfortable. Then I remember my closet. Reorganized. I remembered the laugh. When I said it felt like a violation, I walked to the door and cracked it open an inch. The security chain rattled. Hope flickered across his face. The key, David, I said. Why? Why now? We've had this conversation a dozen times. You promised her access was off limits, without a joint decision. He stood, brushing dirt off his pants. He looked tired, but the stubborn line in his jaw was still there. She's been helping me, he said, with the finances, with the stuff you don't want to deal with. The floor dropped out from under me. Finances? I said, what are you talking about? Our finances are fine. They weren't, he snapped. He stepped closer to the gap. When the car engine blew last year, I didn't have the full amount. She covered it. She's been covering a few things. My chest tightened. The key, he continued, almost offensive now, was the interest. She wanted to feel like she was part of the family. She was supporting. The air left my lungs. This wasn't loneliness. It was a transaction. You sold my peace of mind to your mother, I said quietly, because you were too proud to tell me we were short on cash. My voice barely rose. It didn't need to. It wasn't like that, he started, but I saw it in his eyes. It was exactly like that. Behind him, at the curb, Evelyn opened her car door. She wasn't angry anymore. She was calm, satisfied, a woman who believed. A debt meant ownership. She walked toward the porch. Her heels clicked, slow, measured, like a countdown. "I'm coming in now, David," she called. Her voice was sweet, poison. I think it's time we all sat down and looked at the bank statements together. Since the lock is such an issue, let's talk about who actually paid for the roof over your heads. I looked at David. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He was frozen, caught between the woman who bought him and the woman who loved him. And as Evelyn reached the bottom step, I understood something with terrifying clarity. The locks weren't the only thing. That needed to change tonight. Evelyn reached the top step, her hand already out, like the door should open. By divine right, David stood between us, a middleman in a war he started. His eyes darted from her to me, panicked, the look of a man who'd finally run out of places to hide. The air was heavy, rain hung in it, along with the bitter smell of a trust that had finally died. "Move aside, David," Evelyn said, smooth, cold. "The door is open, isn't it?" "It's not open," I said, my hand gripping the oak. I looked past her to the street, then back at the man I thought I knew. "David, tell her to go back to the car. This is your last chance to be a husband instead of a debtor." He hesitated. 1 second. That was all, but it was the loudest sound I'd heard all night. It told me everything about the next 20 years. If I let that chain slide. He looked at his mother, then at me. His shoulders slumped. He chose the path of least resistance. "Just let her in for 5 minutes." He pleaded. "We'll settle the money talk, and she'll go. Please, don't make this a scene in front of the Millers." "The scene is already made, David," I said, "and the money talk is over." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, a check written 10 minutes earlier, while they whispered on my porch. I'd seen the bank alerts. I knew exactly what he borrowed. I pulled it from my inheritance. Money saved for a rainy day. Well, it was pouring. I slid the check through the crack. Evelyn caught it between 2 fingers. She looked down, her face twisted. "That's the loan," I said, "plus 5% interest. I'm buying my privacy back. Right now, consider the debt settled." It wasn't about the money. Never was. It was about the leash. And I just cut it. She looked at David, waiting for outrage. He just stared at the check, smaller than I'd ever seen him. "Now," I said softly, a whisper, a gavel, "get off my porch. Both of you." "David," Evelyn snapped. The sweetness was gone. "Are you going to let her speak to me like that? After everything?" He swallowed. I think you should go, Mom. I'll call you tomorrow." "You won't call her from here," I said, and the night finally tipped. I unhooked the security chain, not to let them in. I stepped out, closed the door behind me. The keys glinted under the porch light. I stood between them and my home. "What is that supposed to mean?" David asked. His voice was shaking now. "It means if you want to be a son." I said, "Go be a son. Sit in her car. Look at her ledgers. But you don't come back inside until you understand this. A home is an asset. It's a sanctuary. And you invited the wolf inside. You're kicking me out?" He asked. "Over a key?" "Over the lie, David. The key was just a tool you used to unlock our destruction." I didn't wait. I stepped inside, turned the lock. Clack. Even better. The second time, from the kitchen window, I watched Evelyn storm to her car, waving the check like a flag of defeat. David stood on the porch, a long time, hand hovering over a handle that would never turn for him again. Eventually, he followed her. Headlights flared, gravel crunched, then nothing, just rain. I sat alone in the quiet house. The serene sea walls finally felt honest. The locks were new, the debt was gone, and for the first time in 5 years, the air belonged entirely to me. The relationship imploded. But as the rain tapped the roof, I understood something simple. Some houses are better standing alone than being held up by a rotten foundation. The door is locked, the debt is paid, and the silence is finally earned. If you've ever had to draw a hard line to save your sanity, tell us your story in the comments. How much is your privacy worth? Like and subscribe for more stories about the high cost of hidden secrets. Until next time, keep your keys close and your boundaries closer.